In 2020, we're proud to announce it's our 25-year anniversary. To commemorate this achievement, we wanted to develop something that really stood for what Hurley's and Stalker stand for: quality and value. What we developed is something that we're really proud of. I wanted the best quality range of fly rods available. I wanted crispness to instantly pick up a line from the water. I wanted power to turn a strong fish from a snag. I wanted feel you could cast with your eyes closed. I wanted a finish that had minimal reflection. I wanted fittings that were extremely light and all using the quality graphite that allowed it to be the lightest in its class. It's taken some time, but so do all great things, and we're about to release what I think is the world's best fly rod range. When naming this model, we couldn't help but go back to where we started, with the best value for quality range available in Australia and New Zealand 25 years ago. We're now introducing the new Stalker Fly Fishing Legend 25-year anniversary edition. We've used a blend of the highest quality Toray carbon, around 70%. That is what allows the rod to feel almost inconceivably light in your hand. Now, weight is one thing, but when blended with around 30% of the highest Mitsubishi carbon, that is where we get the crispness, power and strength needed in a rod that will be awesome for many years. No flash, matte black, eliminates rod flash. We use 316 stainless single leg guides, eliminates friction, and the silicone insert stripping guide for maximum shootability. The ultra high performance aluminium matte black reel seat only weighs 12 grams with a stunning green decorative graphite insert made from Toray. Comes with our guarantee, and the bag has the reel slit to keep the parts separated even when leaving the rod and reel together. A solid protective triangular tube doesn't allow it to roll all over the place. Comes in 6 models: 7'6" 2 weight, 7'6" 3 weight, 8' 4 weight, 9' 5 weight, 9' 6 weight, and a 9' 6 fast weight. Once you put the new Stalker Legend fly rod in your hand, you'll instantly understand why we're so excited to release it. And once you have your first cast, you'll instantly realise why we had to name it after our first ever fly rod, the Stalker Legend, that started us on this fly fishing path 25 years ago. The new Stalker Legend, you'll be glad you own one.
Yep. Whoa! Here he comes. Yeah. Oh. Isn't it funny how a day pans out?
G'day, I'm Gavin from Hurley's Fly Fishing, and welcome to another episode of On the Fly. We're over in New Zealand, in Southland, which is about an hour below Queenstown, an international airport. We're in the Mataura River, which is a great time of year in January and February for willow grub feeders, and they literally little caterpillars dropping out of the willows, and the trout absolutely love them. This time of year in New Zealand is really exciting fishing. Down in some of these lowland rivers like the Mataura and Wakaya and things like that, you get a lot of like duns and willow grub feeders on the top, and you head up to some of these highland rivers as well, and you get a lot of fish taking the cicadas and blowflies and things like that. So it's really exciting dry fly fishing. So if you ever wanted to get to New Zealand, January, February is a great time as well. We're going to look over for the willow grub feeders, which are funny enough going to be right near the willows. So we'd walk along here and look for rising fish. At times, if they're not rising, they may be just under the surface. So we'll look not necessarily for a rise, but for a change of colour. Might be a lovely light brown, might be a couple of feet long. You'll think it's a stick, then it will move and eat something. That's what you look for. Put your willow grub right next to it. They like to hear that plop as it falls out of the willow tree. That attracts them. Come over and eat it, strike, happy days. So with a bit of luck, we'll put our willow grub pattern in front of these fish and show you them close up. was nice. It was just one I could just see at the back of these willows, and yeah, the sun certainly makes a big difference, you know, to come out here and fishing. I could just see the fish just there. And you get it first cast, which makes it pretty good there. I certainly like to think that your first cast is your best chance to catch these fish. Every time after that, you're virtually halving your chances. So you want to try and get it right the first go. And he sees your fly, and he has no indication that, you know, there's like an idiot on the other end of it, you know. So it just puts things in your favour. If you can get your casting right the first time, it certainly helps. And that's, I think, comes down to a little bit of practice as well. I mean, if we were playing golf, we'd all go to the driving range, you know, before, you know, game day, and really practice, or essentially like driving 300 metres when we should be practicing our putting. But the same with fly fishing. We should be going to a park and practicing on getting that cast so it's going to land not up the willow tree, but where you want it to. So have a bit of spend a bit of time practicing. There's plenty of clubs and casting pools around that you certainly can do that as well, and it pays dividends when you can get that fly right in front of that fish right at the start. Come on, mate. Oh, nice one. That's a lovely brown from the Matara there on a willow grub. So that's certainly a great start where you can see your fish, plonk that fly right out in front of it, and he comes over and grabs it. Beautiful little brown from the Matara, and he's easy, probably 3.5 pounds, but stunning fish. He's keen to get away and do his own thing again. But yeah, it's a pretty good start when you can just see your fish, plonk it out, and he takes it. Just sets you up for a pretty good day. Now we've been fishing here right amongst these willows for these willow grub feeders, and like every fisherman sees a fish and just wants to catch it. Now this is a fish that's just out in the centre of the river, so he's not going to be looking for willow grubs, and he's down deep, so he's more than likely going to be feeding on nymphs, which are the underwater little animals there. But we've just changed fly now to put a little nymph on, and we'll drift that down past him once I actually cast it properly on that next one, and hopefully he'll think that's pretty good tuck up. So they'll just drift down with that nymph underneath the dry and not take it. Right, well, that's a couple we've had half a dozen casts with that. He's still there. Generally, if you scare a fish, he'll go to deeper water where he feels a bit more confident. But it might just be something wrong with this fly, so you can change, give it a couple of different colours, generally go down in size if he's refusing a fly, and you might change colour as well, but it's worth a couple of different goes before you move on. Go. And that was, oh, he's just come off. But that was what it's all about, is getting that take from a fish that you had to think about, change things up a little bit. And, you know, first time he saw it, he's into it. And quite often, I mean, once you've caught a few fish, everyone likes the photo and you can take it home and show mum, you know, what a super angler you are. But I guess once you've done it for a while, you go, oh, well, to get them to take it and to feel that fight when you hook them, that's enough as well. So, you particularly say that when they do get off, but you know, it's important as well. And this is what the fish are so attracted to. You'll see it like all through the willow leaves, these little bumps, little red and clears and things like that. There's a few of them that you'll see are broken out, and that's from other insects actually eating them, be it birds and even European wasps certainly eat those away. You'll have a look on some of those when they have hatched out. Essentially it's like a little cocoon, and they'll just bite their way through there, and ideally they drop onto the ground. Unfortunately, with all these willows, well, for the willow grub anyway, drops onto the water. They die pretty quickly, and they die even faster once the trout eats them. They live in there for quite a while, and I'll just crack one open just to show you what they look like. Essentially it's a little caterpillar type creature. Right, now this is the willow grub, which we've just pulled out from the willow tree there, and you can see it's got like a caterpillar with that hint of perhaps yellow or green with that little black head, and that just wriggles its way, and really good for the trout. There's obviously a lot of goodness in that. That's why they go so hard at them, and they feed whenever they can. They're like Labradors, and it's certainly good for the fly fishermen as well. So an excellent little thing. That's one of the things that have been introduced, the willow tree, to New Zealand. Certainly works out well for the fishermen. Got one just over the back here. I can just see the fish just under the surface, right by the edge. Beauty. And that's nice. Just walking up, and that one he hadn't risen, but oh, and it's just, but anyway, not to worry. He hadn't risen, but I could just see that change of colour, and you just see this little brown critter walking up looking for food, plonked that fly out there, and he took it. Now the only bad thing about wet wading is depth, and every now and then it'll just get to that sort of depth that makes you want to have worn waders. That were pretty tough. The little one rose. Oh. Sometimes you can get a bit of drag when you're casting sideways. You can throw and just do that wiggle cast. It gives a little bit of extra drift naturally to the fish. Just that wiggle cast, and just allows that fly to drift naturally before it eventually runs out and tends to drag, and then the fish won't eat it. Oh, nice one. They seem to be a lot more comfortable, I guess, to take the fly when they are under that willow, and I guess for obvious reasons. That's where this fish would expect to find a willow grub, and tangle in there. Right, great fish there. Just plenty of power too. So, and they vary from year to year. You might get some that are about 3.5 pounds and things like that. And the next year, if they've had a really good spawning and feeding time, they might be up to 4, even 4.5. So they do vary, but they're just in great nick all the same. And you can just have a look. It isn't hard to understand why New Zealand was designed for trout fishing. Just beautiful, clear rivers. There's so much food here, and the trout really thrive in it. And a lot of it comes down to water temperature. It's quite, even though we're not wearing waders, we're doing that for a few reasons, because it's like 28 degrees and there's no snakes. Now that's pretty important too, everybody will like that. But the water's quite cool and refreshing, but good for the trout. They really enjoy that cooler water. Just get him on a shorter line. And when you're fishing by yourself, you've got to wind that line all the way in at times. And if we can keep him going, get him in there. But that's good. That's what the willow grub's all about, you know, to spot a fish as it's moving around. Lovely sunny day, and you get a wonderful specimen of a trout like that. It's just fantastic. So if you ever wondered why you'd go to New Zealand, this is why. The side aspect of this fishing is just incredible, and it's something you just have to do. There you go, lovely little willow grub right in the corner of the mouth. I always like to use a net. You can just subdue that fish a lot faster, and you don't have him bouncing along over the rocks as well, so that's always much better for the fish, and you can keep him in the water for a lot longer. I'll just let him go straight away. So the less time out of the water, the better for the fish. We still get the enjoyment, and I think the fish is a lot happier about it too. So look after the fish, and they'll be here for your kids next time. We've just walked downstream a little bit, and again what we're seeing just under the surface, every now and then there's a rise, but they will move considerably to eat willow grubs. So you really want to ideally see where the fish is to make sure you're putting your fly right in front of him. So we can see him just under the surface, that light tanny shade, and then we can track him and put this fly in front of him, is the plan. Now I think it's pretty important when you are fishing two targets that are very close to structure. Distance is very important. When we do a normal cast, backwards, forwards, false cast, and then let it go, and we shoot line, we actually lose control of that line, and that can extend our cast, but we don't know exactly how far. If we're casting towards structure like that, where a fish is right next to that bit of willow or that stump, if we do a normal cast and shoot line, we lose control, and that can send it right into the willows and gets a bit frustrating, tying knots, all that sort of stuff. What I like to do is when I can see a fish that's in there, is when I get to about the distance, is I hold that line and I put that down, and I know the distance there, I need one more foot. I can extend it 1 foot, hold that line, and then put it back down, and then that puts that fly in exactly the same position each time. So if I know there's a fish there, I can repetitively just flick it up and put it back there straight away, the exact same spot, without shooting line. You're really guessing where it goes, and half the time it ends up in the bushes. No fun for anybody except a bloke with a fishing shop. But might save you a few flies, and it'll catch you a lot more fish. See one just up here. Straight onto it. Oh, he didn't eat it. Going a little bit closer. Try him. Oh, and he missed it. And you know it changes. You go for a while, and every fish that looks at your fly eats it, and you stay connected. And the next time, pull him out of his mouth. And that's a problem. Just check the fly, and that one's fallen apart, which could probably explain why that fish has decided he didn't want to eat it. So we'll get another one. This time we'll use a pretty one, and I'm sure the fish will think that this one's perfect. Now it's important when you're wading in New Zealand. Most of the time you're going to be on the bank, and you'll walk up, spot a fish, because we're relying on sight fishing, which is why we come to New Zealand. Get in the water, maybe cast to it, catch it, and then hop out until you find another one. With this style of fishing, you've got to be really in and amongst it and close to the action. So this is where the fish are going to be, right in the willows and in the undercuts and underneath, which is why you practice your cast to get close and all that. But as we're walking up, here we need to wade through the river. And if we walk too fast, we'll create our own little bow wave here. And that's going to push water right up in front of us. And to the fish, they'll feel that on their lateral lines. That's the line that just goes down the side. We won't get too carried away with that. But what that means is water comes this way in a river, and it faces upstream, and it feels this surge of water. And that can only mean one thing, and it's danger. And that's ingrained in them, whether it's from a bear chasing them or a wily old fly fisherman. That's enough for them to go down and just wait to make sure everything's all safe again. So when you do wade up through the middle of a river, do it quite slow so you don't push any water up there, and you'll find you'll catch more fish. Now the setup I use a 6 weight because some of these fish are going to be pretty big, and you're going to be around the willows, which is, you know, somewhere they can break you off pretty easily. It also gets them in pretty quick, so a lot of these fish just want to get in, release it, so it's good to go, and find another one. A dull coloured line is probably the next most important thing. If we throw something bright anywhere around this area, it's literally going to frighten buggery out of these trout. So we want something quite dull. I use like a khaki line. A lot of the good ones, the Stalker Glide or the Rios and Scientific Anglers have these coloured lines. They blend in and just make catching fish here in New Zealand so much easier. So we've got a new fly on. You can see a fish there now. Plonk that out. They'd like to hear that plop. And hopefully take it in a second. Hasn't taken it. Oh. And that's a problem too. When you get too focused on a fish upstream and right beside you, you've got a sitter that you could have caught. First world problems. Wow. Never will I ever understand what goes through particularly a trout's mind. There's got to be 10 casts where he's specifically come up, looked at that and go, no, not going to eat it. No, I'm not going to eat it. No, not going to eat it. And yeah, just on that one, maybe he just got sick of me casting at him and he decided he was going to put me out of my misery, but he decided that was the best thing ever, and he took it without hesitation at all. Just incredible. So sometimes it does pay to change, make something a bit different. Other times maybe it is just persistence. Maybe that's what that message is there. Just keep going. If what you're doing's worked before, keep doing it, and eventually they'll succumb to it. So it certainly worked. So just a great fish. I mean, I really love looking at these New Zealand trout when they're up high in the water column. They look a really stunning sort of tan colour. They certainly look a lot bigger than what they are too, which makes for pretty exciting fishing. So that's pretty good when the plan works out. And these willow grub feeders, it's an amazing time of year to come across to New Zealand to target these, because they are just so aggressive towards them and so prolific. So these fish, and as you can see, is all the way up this Matau River, it's lined with willow grubs, which are literally just releasing food. And we're just getting in between that every now and then. And eventually he's right on his head, and we're getting in there. He's a lovely fish, 2.5 pound, not a monster, but certainly a really enjoyable catch. And they're the ones you remember. If they're a little bit hard at times, or you have to change things, or in this case not change something, you certainly remember them. So this one's a great one. Just quickly bring him out like through the net there. If you can get in there. Just a stunning little fish. I won't keep him out too long. And that's very important when you are catching fish. I'll just pop him back in there now, but just a beautiful fish. He's good to go. He doesn't need any reviving. Very important that when you do catch fish and you are going to release it, that you do it very quickly. There's none of this like holding them out for like a minute and getting 27 different photos and angles and all that sort of stuff, and then putting it back. What we really need is water to be going through the gills most of the time. So leave it in the net. Get everything ready, whatever you need to do. You want your camera out, your video, whatever you're going to do. And I'm sure the fish is thankful for you doing that and putting him back. But get it ready, get him out of the net, bang, bang, bang. A short amount of time if you need that photo. Put him back in, hold him upstream and let him go. And he'll be right for when you come back here next time, or your son comes over here down the track, or daughter, or anybody. We've got to look after our fishery that's over here, wherever you are in the world. Look after it and it'll look after you. Well, that's all we've got time for on today's episode. I hope you've really enjoyed it. It's an amazing place to come and fish, and I'm glad to be able to show you some of it. If you get a chance, get across here and really experience it. It'll be a fly fishing destination that you're really going to love. I look forward to catching you on the fly.